Who will be baseball's first $500 million player? There's really only one answer, but I'll give you some suggestions. Let's get into it. What's going on, baseball fans? Jeremy Laracuente here for the Baseball Banter Broadcast. And as I pose the question in the open, who will be baseball's first $500 million player? There are some potential suggestions out there. I definitely want to hear your thoughts on who it should be down in the comment section below. So let's get into who are some of those choices. Now, when we look at this particular year's offseason, you have guys like Freddie Freeman, Carlos Correa, Trevor Story, some big name superstar free agents right now on the market. But to me, none of them are going to make that $500 million contract. Right now, you would have thought that a player like Mike Trout or even like a Fernando Tatis Jr. could have potentially reached that mark. But both of them already have deals secured. $430 million for Mike Trout, $340 million for Fernando Tatis Jr. But when we look at $500 million, $500 million, who is that player going to be? Now, obviously, it has to be a younger star, somebody that is still up and coming, that has a ground swell beneath them, that is really pushing towards being one of the very, very best in all of Major League Baseball and all of baseball history. So there's still a lot of speculation and time to be filled out between now and when this contract comes into play. But there are some names out there who could potentially find themselves on this list. Guys like Ke'Bryan Hayes from the Pittsburgh Pirates comes to mind as a very young, dynamic star. But we still have a lot of room to try to figure out exactly who this player is going to be. You have guys like Yordan Alvarez, who's a big-time slugger in this game. But without his ability to really field his position, there's going to be a lack therein for a $500 million contract for a player like that. Bo Bichette, playing one of the most premier defensive positions as a shortstop, to me, just won't reach those same elevations to be able to acquire a $500 million contract. So it really comes down to two players who potentially could find themselves on that $500 million marquee. First, we look at Vladimir Guerrero Jr. When you look at Vladdy Jr., this is absolutely one of the most dynamic and influential, game-changing, franchise-changing bats that the game has to offer. This is without question one of the best first basemen, one of the best young players in all of Major League Baseball. This is going to be a guy whose name is across marquees all over. This is going to be a player that, while being a second-generation star, somebody having to live up to the level, the heights, the lofty heights of his Hall of Fame father, will, in my opinion, surpass him. Yes, that is how good Vladimir Guerrero Jr. can be. But when it comes to Vladdy Jr., his defense is going to be the biggest question. He's already playing a less than stellar defensive position when it comes to the defensive spectrum as a first baseman. Yes, if he was to stay at third base, it would increase his value, but only if he was able to excel at the position. By being a first baseman DH type, Vladdy Jr. is going to limit what he's going to be capable of reaching in terms of monetary value and monetary peaks. Therefore, in my opinion, I think Vladdy is going to absolutely rake in a monster deal. Arguably, a $400 million deal for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is very likely in the cards over the next coming couple of seasons. While that may not be with the Blue Jays in my mind, I think that he will move on to a different club to be able to get that once he hits free agency. To me, there's still a very, very big gap between Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the $500 million man, and that is Juan Soto. When you look at Soto, there's very little doubt in my mind. His eye at the plate, his understanding of his strike zone and the strike zone therein is absolutely phenomenal. I've already made the comparison to him on our top 10 right fielders list that this is the second coming, this generation's version of Ted Williams. This is a player that absolutely will garner a lot of interest in his free agency count. This is a young player who has the ability to hit for power, hit for average, and while he's not the greatest runner or the greatest defender in right field, he's still going to be at a higher defensive value position than that of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. When you look at where the game is going financially, how the funds in the game are continuing to grow and continuing to grow exponentially, this is going to be the progression that we reach. Now, are there going to be players that could find themselves on this list. Players that I've mentioned, guys like Rafael Devers, Bo Bichette, Brian Hayes, these guys could find themselves making well over $300 million in the next coming decade. But to me, there's literally just one player who has the potential to become baseball's first $500 million player, and to me, Juan Soto is that guy. This is a franchise-changing bat. When he steps into a lineup, it is much-watched television. Now, yes, there are going to be factors that have to play out for him to be able to achieve this level of success. But in my opinion, if baseball is going to have a $500 million man in the next decade, it is going to be Juan Soto. But I want to hear from you guys. Let me know your feelings on this down in the comment section below. Who is baseball's $500 million man in your mind? Keep it locked in to the entire GLMG family with We Sibs, the Granny Geek Show, and of course here on the Baseball Banter Broadcast. And for sticking around all the way to the end, I want to offer you a promo code. Use the promo code BANTER on baseballbanterbroadcast.com, the merchandise shop of the Baseball Banter Broadcast. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Keep it locked in all season long as we continue to bring you the latest news, notes, and my personal thoughts, theories, and opinions on the game of Major League Baseball. Peace.